And there we go. Sean Kearns, thank you very much. Welcome to the Written Word. I really appreciate you doing this interview.
Absolute pleasure, Mick. Absolute pleasure.
So my opening question, as always, is what are you reading or what are you listening to? Do you do podcasts? Are you reading books? What's your format of Written Word?
Well, I have to be very honest. I'm not the greatest of readers. It always baffles me when people, pick up a book and they go, "Oh, the first 100 pages were really tough." But once you get through the first 100 pages, I have no time for that. If it doesn't grab me on page one, then that's it. I mean, the last big book that I tried, the last book that I tried to read was Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. Okay. And that book did my head in because there were too many people called the same name. And you'd be going, "Oh no, I'm going to have to go back 20 pages and go, there were too many Cromwells and too many people called Thomas." And it was just like, no. But the television adaptation was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. and it all made perfect sense. I suppose the last book and this that I read, and it was a long time ago, was the Da Vinci Code. Yeah. On holiday. I literally read it in one go, and for me, that's what I need. I just don't have the patience. Yeah. And sometimes I don't have the time to sit and devote and pour over. I totally get it, and I totally get people going, yeah, books are fantastic, and they are, but I just don't have the patience.
Do you think as well, because you're an actor and you're reading scripts all the time, and you get into that thing where, if a script really grabs you, you carry on reading it, whereas with a book,
Yeah. And you know what? I much prefer reading, sorry, Mick, I much prefer reading scripts cold rather than a script that, because it's very hard to read something objectively if you've got an interest in it. So if somebody sends you a script and they say, "We would like to consider, or you to consider, the character of," all you do is you read. You first of all you scan through and go, "How many pages am I in? How many speeches have I got? How about?" It's really hard then to read objectively that piece because you've got an interest in it. Whereas if you read scripts cold and just read plays for what they are, then that's so much easier. Yeah. But yeah, no, I listen to a few podcasts. I'm obsessed with Line of Duty at the moment. Okay. So I just did that one this morning. I also very much enjoy Off Menu. Do you listen to that with Ed Gamble and James Acaster?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's basically they have a celebrity every week, and you basically talk about what would be. So it's poppadoms or bread, your starter, your main course, your drink, and your dessert, and it's a very funny show. And another one is called Dear Joan and Jericha.
Okay.
Which is Julia Davis and Vicky Pepperdine. Right. So, and it's basically like an agony to two agony aunts who answer all of these readers' problems, and the problems it's always the woman's fault. Right. So it's like, well, it's her duty to do to her husband whatever he wants her to do, and it's very funny. It's very funny.
Brilliant. So you've done a vast array of shows, both here in Northern Ireland and across the water, from big West End shows to original stuff. I wanted to talk to you about the difference between fitting into a massive operation like a Wicked or something compared to being an original cast member. What are those experiences like? How do they differ? Do you have a preference?
Well, do you know, it's interesting. So all of the big shows that are up and running in the West End, you literally are stepping into someone else's shoes. Mm-hmm. So the reason why those shows run so long is because they work and they're a formula, and 9 times out of 10 they're not interested in you as an actor and your input and your thought process. It's like, no, you literally just get into the costume, you walk paces here, you turn your head to the left, you do this, and that's why this show works, and that's why this show has been running as long as it has been, because it's about being consistent.
Yeah.
And it's quite frustrating because then as an actor you want to feed off other people, but sometimes you're going into a show and someone will have been sat in that show for 3 years, and they've just become part of that machine. Um, something like when I did the Commitments, I was in the original cast of that, so that was really joyful because we got to create the original footprint. So you didn't have to. There wasn't a book going, oh, so what does he do? Like, for example, when I was in Wicked, we were rehearsing one day. And when I went into Wicked, I went in to play Dr. Dillamond, and I was first cover wizard. So I'd never covered and understudied a role before that point. And there was one day we were in rehearsal, and I was rehearsing the wizard with one of the understudies for Elphaba. And I took my hat off because the wizard wears a top hat, and I took my hat off, and the assistant director was going, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just taking my hat off to show Elphaba that I'm not hiding anything. And he went, oh, we've never had a wizard do that. I'm not sure. And I said, well, it's no big deal. It was just an instinct. Oh, I'm going to have to get in touch with New York to clear that. I said, look, honestly, it's not an issue. It was just something that felt very natural in a two-hand scene, which doesn't involve anybody else. And about a week later, she came back to me and she said, oh, we got the green light. You can take your hat off. And I went, well, I don't want to now because it's been made such a big deal. And then not only that, but she then went to the actor who was understudying me. So, and she said, and this is the point that the wizard now takes his hat off. And you go, no, because it's about communicating. It's about a relationship between two characters, and it shouldn't matter whether I want to do one thing or another, because that's what makes me different from the last person who played the character.
Yeah.
But whereas something like the Commitments, that was just brilliant because we got to create those and breathe life into those characters for the very first time.
Yeah.
I mean, so the first big West End show. So the first West End show I did was 39 Steps,
Mm-hmm.
which was one physical routine from start to finish, and that was a show where you literally had to just click into the machine.
Yeah.
And that was terrifying because from day one of rehearsal, we were rehearsing that show with full sound system, full props, full costume bits, and I don't even know what my name is, and I'm having to try and remember doing all of these hat switches. And so you always felt that you were trying to catch a runaway train. But
Yeah.
once you got the foundations into your system, it became a lot easier. And that was the only way that show could be done.
Yeah.
I then went into Billy Elliot, and again, that was a big machine, but a less strict machine.
Okay.
So there was a lot more scope for individuality, which was brilliant. And because of the amount of children that were in, you were always in rehearsing because there was always a different team. There was always a different Billy. There was always a different Michael. So, and to keep things, and that was one of the things that kept things fresh.
Yeah.
Because I did that for a year and a half. And, the other thing is that people don't seem to realize is the majority of the audiences in the West End are tourists, and about 80% of them don't speak English. So if you're in a big musical, all well and good, all fine, big claps at the end of the numbers. But you go into something that is verbal, something that is a comedy or has got a witty script, and then there are days you're playing it and you're getting no reaction whatsoever for any of the any of the jokes, and then you have to remind yourself these people don't speak English.
Yeah.
It used to become very very obvious that the front two rows of all of the shows would have been booked out with Japanese tourists back then with their masks on, fast asleep, because they'd had the red eye. We're in London for the weekend. We're just off the plane. We're going to go and see a show. We're going to go and sit in a hot theater and just go totally unconscious. Uh, so it's been such a big learning curve going into those big long shows. Um, and as a young actor, and every young actor just going, oh, I wouldn't want to be tied down, and I wouldn't want. But my priorities changed. I had run the gamut here in Ireland, both north and south, of being the big fat friend of the big silly one, the big whatever. And I decided then to try and I could never plan anything. As you know yourself, when you work as a freelancer, it's like, oh, I'd love to go on holiday, but I can't, just in case I get a half day as an extra on whatever might be coming in. So like Gillian and Caitlin were off on holidays when they were wee, and I was going, no, don't worry, because I'll work and I'll pay for it. But then suddenly I got my first year-long contract in the West End. And on a year-long contract, you get 4 weeks paid holiday. So it means that there are 4 weeks in the year where you can go, do you know what? That week, the three of us, we're going to go to Portugal, or we'll go to, one of the Spanish islands, or we'll go whatever. And not only that, but I knew that my mortgage was going to be paid for the year.
Yeah.
Do you know? And so it was tough. It was tough going away
Yeah.
and missing out on a lot, and a lot of like Caitlin's school stuff I missed out hugely on. But for us, we had the financial security then of going, my mortgage, and then when I went into the commitments, I did that for 2 years. So year-long contracts, you just go, I'm safe as houses. I'm absolutely safe as houses, because we don't have that worry anymore. And I was very lucky because I was able to stay with a really good friend of mine who I've known for over 30 years. Uh, and Gillian and Caitlin were able to come over when they wanted and for as long as they wanted, and that was just glorious.
Brilliant. And I suppose, I mean, it's in other trades, people work away sometimes weekly and they're flying back and forth or away from you.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
You know,
it takes a lot of drive to push yourself. You would have been an in-demand actor here. Um,
yeah.
but you always had your eye on going over and doing those shows. You know, what kind of is that a drive thing of going, well, this, if I don't do that, I won't feel I will have succeeded to my best ability, or
Well, do you know, it's interesting because I didn't go to drama college. I got rejected by every college that I applied to for
wow,
about 4 years on the trot, and it was
that's still
so I sort of began. Well, I began my sort of drama life, I suppose, in Newry with New Point Players,
yeah,
with an amazing man called Sean Hollywood, who's no longer with us, who was the most well-read man ever. He was a school teacher. He was also a hurling coach as well. He was heavily into politics. Sean was an incredible guy. But John Lynch and Susan Lynch and myself were all in, in New Point Players, and we used to take part in the amateur drama festivals right around the country. And it was Sean who instilled a love of theatre. And school kid, and you're in plays with all of your teachers, which was like quite surreal. And you'd be in a pub with them after a show, and then the following day you're in the classroom with them, and it's like, yeah, Mr. O'Hanlon and Mr. Trainer, and which was like bonkers, absolutely bizarre. but so that was amazing. And then Ulster Youth Theatre with Michael Poyner. Um, and with Michael, so suddenly then I am with 40 other people who are the same age as me, who love doing what I love to do, and we're all doing it together. And the fact that Michael was able to engineer having a completely professional team surrounding it all. So you had professional choreographer, you had professional, stage manager, you had, so you were ostensibly, that was the world that you were hoping to get into.
Yeah.
Um, so that was astonishing, absolutely astonishing. And the more shows that I did with him, the hungrier that I got, and I just gone, I have to do this. I have to do this. And being then rejected by every college it was heartbreaking. I'll never forget the first college I ever applied to was Central School of Speech and Drama, and I went over and I stayed with John Lynch because John was a really good mate of mine. And I went in and I did my two pieces, and there were about 70 or 80 of us, and then we were all in this huge hall, and someone came in with a sheet of paper and said the panel would like to see candidates 22, 27, 36, 44, and the rest, I'm terribly sorry. And I'm going, no, you've made a mistake. You haven't called my name. You haven't called my number. And I got so upset because I wanted it so much. And I went, but surely you can tell that I am right for this. And this is, but that's the way it works. And then I tried to figure out how the system worked. And I thought, are they casting a company of actors for each college each year? So are they going, right, we need two people who are over 6 foot tall. We need one Irish person. We need three comedy character actors. We need, and you would try and rack your brains and go, if I get in right at the start when they haven't seen everybody, would that help? Or do I wait and go, right, they've seen everybody and then maybe I'll surprise them? And it never happened. And Poyner, bless him, he gave me my first ever job playing the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz up in the Riverside Theatre in Coleraine.
Right. Okay.
And I started that as an acting ASM. And for the first 2 or 3 years of my career, I was an acting ASM. And I went on tour with Sharabang as an acting ASM for about a year and a half. And that's what's made me who I am, because none of us can do our job without anybody else. And so I'm very aware that, that especially during tech, when we're in a theatre teching, the tech is not for, well, basically it's not for the actors, it's for everybody else who hasn't had 4 weeks to rehearse a play. Or, so you've got, as a sound operator or a sound designer or a lighting operator or a lighting designer, you've got 3 days, 3 days to get all of your shit together, and that's who the time should be for. That's who we are there to serve. And because of that, I think I have such an understanding and a respect for, the non-performing side of the industry. And you go, well, it's going to take time. It's going to, so yeah. And I think that's what's made me who I am today.
And are acting ASMs still, are those roles still there, or has that been divided out? Is there still,
no? That's gone. That's totally gone. Like that thing where I would be rehearsing a scene, and then whenever not needed, I'm out making props, or I'm out, going down to Hotham's, doing whatever. Yeah. And especially on tour with someone like Sharabang, you'd be going to like a golf club to put up a set with no masking, and you're going, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? And then at 4 o'clock, the cast would arrive. Oh, why is that not done? Oh, is this not going to get? It's got shut the fuck up, So it's having a tolerance and an awareness, you know.
Fair play. A good grounding. I think there's a brave few people. I think Dan Gordon was an acting ASM, and maybe was Simon McGill one as well. So it's interesting
Yeah,
to
yeah.
um, see what that grounding does for people, as opposed to just kind of swarm in and
Yeah, well, you know, this business is so, it's so self-centered. Well, it's so easy to become so self-centered.
yeah,
And I think unless you've got somebody to ground you, it's so important. Everything is so important. And then, I mean, so Gillian, my wife is she goes, Sean, you're paid to pretend. You go, well, yeah, but she says, no, bottom line, you dress up and you're paid to pretend. You don't save people's lives. You don't do this. You don't do the other. You know what I mean? So, and you go, fuck it, you're right. Yeah, I know. But still, I'm allowed to get pissed off. And I'm allowed. And that's not to say that you're not passionate,
yeah,
but there are some people who, eh, you know, that it's their be all and end all. And if they don't, you know, live it, breathe it, shit it, you know, then it ain't worth happening, you know.
yeah.
But it is.
Of a few of the things that have come up with these conversations we've been having is how we view failure. And I don't know whether it's just a Northern Ireland thing. Do you think people take less risk here because they're afraid of failing or afraid of failing publicly?
But I think it's really important to be allowed to fail,
Yeah,
because only by being allowed to fail can you progress, and can you find out why,
yeah,
and why that didn't work, you know. And I think the pressure the pressure now is for everything to be a box office success, and not only a box office success but a runaway box office success. And you just go, you're asking too much. We should be allowed to get things wrong.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that means that you can throw any old piece of shit up and just go, ah well. No, you know, we all go into things with the best intention and with the best will to make them work. And you know, and on new writing especially, it's our responsibility as actors to pay and to give the writer the respect that they're due. You know, you know, a writer will hopefully have spent, you know, months, weeks debating over whether that comma should be there or not, or whether the word and it's our responsibility as actors to help realize that work for the writer. It's so easy to go in and go, oh, well, my character wouldn't say this, or I think that's shit. Can we cut this? Can we cut this? Can we cut this? And you go, well, let's try and make it work first.
yeah,
That's our first priority. Um, and I think if we do that, and we delve in, and we, you know, we give a new piece of work our full attention, and help to realize it in as best means that we can, then only then can the writer honestly, and the director, and the entire creative team, including the acting company, then we can step back from it and go, do you know what, it didn't work, and
yeah,
this is why it didn't. Do you know?
yeah, certainly.
I think it's too easy. It's much too easy. And more so now, with things hopefully starting to open up. I pity any producer in a live venue who's going to say, do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to throw my money down the toilet because we'll only play to 10% capacity. Who's going to do that?
Yeah.
And how long would something need to run for in order for that? Because it could never, ever become cost effective.
Well, that's
You
it.
know, and I think with the best,
Most venues need about
sorry, go ahead.
most venues need about 60 or 70% to break even. Some venues need like 80, 90% sales to break even. So, uh, you know, it's a big ask to say, well, 30% seating capacity. It's like, who's taking that risk, you know?
And also, yeah, and we don't know yet, when venues here start to open up as to whether they will be uh, socially distanced or whether, because I think this is going to be with us for quite a while to come yet,
I'd say so. I'd say so. And I
you know,
suppose,
with the best will in the world.
and it will have a big effect on programming, because it then becomes even harder for a producer, be it a venue or an individual, to take any type of risk with product, because just by merely putting it on is a massive risk in itself. So
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
be interesting to see what type of stuff we'll get, whether it's all one man shows or just music or comedians or who knows. And you can understand big risks or big
And
risks.
you can never, but also you can never second guess what you think people want to see.
Yeah,
Yes, I mean, financially, it would make so much more sense for people to go, right, uh, Molly Sweeney, or we'll do something, or anything, a duologue, a monologue, a series of monologues. But where's the drama? Where's the
yeah,
That's what people are missing. People are really missing that sort of interaction.
yeah.
Um, and even on stage, whether we have to be socially distanced on stage, that still is
To be,
uncertain.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Strange times indeed.
It's very strange. It's very strange. Um, yeah, because this time last year I was on tour in the States, and we had done 6 weeks in LA, and then we were in San Francisco whenever we had to come back. And I was really upset because uh, we missed out going to Washington D.C., we missed out going to St. Paul, we missed out finishing up in Detroit,
Wow.
and I was just like, oh. And I don't know whether that will ever happen, whether that will be resurrected, or
Was that was
because
that
I
a,
have no idea what
was that a new piece? Was it its first production or
that was. That was a massive big musical called The Last Ship,
okay? Yeah.
that Sting had written, and he was in it as well.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, that was really strange. We went in on a Wednesday to do our two shows, and we did our first one. We did the matinee, and when we came off stage, we were told theatre's closing,
Wow.
show's gone. So it's quite. So we never got to finish it.
Yeah.
And if we'd known that matinee performance was going to be our last, it might have been, well, who knows, sentimentally for all of us, it would have been different if we'd known that was going to be our last one. But we literally came off stage, got out of costume to go out for our dinner break to come back, and as soon as we came off stage, company manager and the theater manager just gone, that's it, theater shut, show's gone. It
And
was
prior to that, that must have been quite an experience to be doing such a high profile show touring around America.
it was astonishing. It was astonishing. Um,
It
you
must
know,
have been
um,
surreal in a sense when you go, that's Sting.
well, totally, totally, totally bizarre. Yeah, I mean, he'd be in the rehearsal room when we were rehearsing in London, with his guitar, sitting just twiddling away, and but he was incredible. He was absolutely incredible, and so generous. And um, because the show had opened in Broadway a couple of years ago, and it didn't really work. So this had been totally rewritten, reorchestrated, um, and he was just the most generous human being with his time, with his advice, constantly tinkering with melodies and changing things and mixing things up, but all for your good. Just going, I'm going to give you an extra verse in this song, or I'm going to change this, I'm going to change the key in this, blah blah blah. So he constantly working and constantly wanting to get it right. Um, yeah, and it was just really sad that we never got to finish it,
Yeah.
you know. But who knows?
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows?
And does he get called Mr. Sting or just Sting? Is it Mr. Sting on the stage?
Mr. Sting. Gordon.
But that, I mean, that's a fantastic last live experience.
Oh, incredible. 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 Like our opening night in Los Angeles, uh Annie Lennox was there, uh Courtney Cox was there, De Niro was there, um Trudy Styler, who Sting's missus, her guest was um Dustin Hoffman. Who else was there? Danny DeVito, Pierce Brosnan, Carlos Santana.
Fucking
You
hell.
know, and you're going, sorry, excuse me,
Did you not just pick?
Sean, come here, mate.
Did you not just pick up the
What
phone
was it?
to Central and say, "Do you remember I had this for you?" Yeah.
No, but I did because I was sitting on you know, because we and it was brilliant because we had these incredible apartments in LA, and I remember sitting one night and just going, I'm from a council estate in Uri. I you know, I've no A levels, I've no O levels, I didn't go to college. And I just thought, and I did. I raised a wee glass to my mum, who passed away 3 years ago, and I just, you know, yeah, I still do. You know, we're all only as good as our last job,
Yeah.
and so to me, always the most exciting day is when I get a phone call from my agent saying they want you. And that will never change
Yeah.
because that is just the most thrilling thing. And I don't give a shit whether two people ahead of me were offered it and turned it down.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me at all. If the fact is they've come to me and said, we want you to be in this, or you know,
Yeah.
and that is always the most thrilling and exciting. And you know, yeah, I'm a big kid, and it's just the most amazing feeling, you know, to be
And
I suppose ultimately to be wanted.
yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. But and as you say, you came from a housing estate in Uri. That's good going. That's good going. Like, do you think is it?
Not too bad.
I often ask people, is it persistence? Is it mixed with a bit of luck? Is it just hard graft until you get the talent, and then you mix hard graft with talent? Why do you think you got to the point where you're sitting on an opening night like that? Is or you know, some people go, "Oh, I
I
got luck."
think
I think you make your own luck to a certain extent. Well, me personally, anyway. You know.
I think it's a mixture of all of those things. You know, I've been doing this for nearly 35 years now, and so I've put in my graft. I still put in my graft on every job that I do. But you know, I've toured every hole in the ditch in Ireland. I've been dragged through every hedge backwards. I've you know, and I think everybody in this industry talks. So everybody, you know, you go into one job and you'll come out of it and uh, everybody talks about everybody on every level, on what they're like as a human being, what they're like as a company member, you know. And I think, especially having done the stuff in the West End and having done long contracts, to me, it's much more important about employing the right group of people
Mm-hmm.
rather than like an individual. I think a company it's much more important to have a blended company of actors. So say for example, it's a cast of 12.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather have the most wonderful, embracing, supportive company of 12 actors where you can make a complete dick of yourself, but you're supported.
Mhm.
And so that you've got the confidence then to be brave, and you've got the confidence to push yourself, rather than 12 highly strung sort of me's, where it's just about tension and it's just about personalities clashing. And to me, that's not a helpful environment to work in, and it's not a very creative environment to work in. So I would much rather be in the company of generous human beings,
Mhm.
because then if we were all generous together and we all support each other, then we can fly anywhere. We can do anything, and you don't feel self-conscious.
You think some of that stems from the fact that when you started in the amateur circuit, in many venues I've been working in, there's always, a week or two where the amateur groups come in, and what always surprises me is that, and sometimes their shows are as good as the professional ones because every single person there wants to be there.
Yeah,
They've all got jobs, they're all taking
yeah,
time off for
yeah,
holidays, whatever else, regardless of whether they're on or off stage, just to be part of a company and to work really
yeah,
hard to get something
yeah,
done.
yeah. No, absolutely. But also, I want to be there.
Yeah.
Every day I go into rehearsal for anything, I want to be there. And it's just really upsetting when you work with people who don't want to be there, and they go, well, do something else.
Yeah.
If ultimately, there aren't that many jobs going around for all of us. So if all you do whenever from the minute, the day and hour that you walk into a rehearsal room is whinge and complain and argue, and do something else, and stop infecting the environment, and infect and putting a big sort of stop on the whole process, because none of us can do our job without anybody else.
Currently, are you working, Sean? Are you on any projects at the minute, or?
Yes, so I've been very lucky. I'm currently working with Cahoots on a brilliant show called The University of Wonder and Imagination, which we started last September. And it's an hour-long, fully interactive show over Zoom, with a maximum of 10 screens per show. So it just means then we can be specific with people.
Yeah.
And so I can hone in on you and ask you specific questions, and your answers then determine what happened in the rest of the show.
Excellent.
It's been brilliant. I mean, we're currently doing a virtual tour of the United States from York Gate Shopping Center. Uh, so we've already done like a week in Las Vegas. We've done Brookville, New York. We've done San Francisco. We're about to do Pittsburgh, Palm Beach,
Brilliant.
California next week. So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to think that you are in a disused office in Yorkgate Shopping Centre, but you're talking and you're inside people's houses in America, and that's brilliant. We're also going to be doing the Imagine It Festival in Edinburgh as well in the end of May, beginning of June.
Brilliant.
But Paul has been brilliant. He he knows his audience so well. He knows exactly, what people and what his audiences expect. And this show is literally, it's full of illusion and magic, and I've been doing it now for about 6-7 months, and I'm going, how are they doing that? Are you serious? Yeah, I even do a wee bit of magic myself, so which is fantastic. But yeah, so I'm doing that, and we're doing that up until the end, or to the beginning of June, I think, and then that's probably it.
It's a good stint of work to have, and something very different as well.
Well, it's also, subconsciously as well, even thinking, being able to play down the barrel of a camera,
Yeah.
which is actors, actors from Northern Ireland, we don't necessarily always get the attention when we go on a set as we hope we will get. You know, sometimes you mightn't even come across the director if you're doing a day on a telly. It'll be the, you know, the floor manager or the assistant director, and so it's just been amazing being able to play down the barrel and look at people directly in there and comment and talk, you know. So that's been wonderful.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time, Sean. I really appreciate you doing the interview.
Absolute pleasure.
Pleasure as always.